Alright guys, so last week we looked at how we can find the surface area of prisms and cylinders. This week we're going to take a look at how we can find the surface area of pyramids. So we remember when we're looking at pyramids, we're looking at these shapes here that have this apex at the top, and then we have the shape of the base, which is what tells us what kind of pyramid it is. So if we look at this one here, the base on the bottom there is a triangle, so we have a triangular pyramid. We have to make sure that we can identify the right shape, because if we don't identify it as the right shape, we're going to use the wrong formula when it comes to finding the surface area. This one here, it's kind of hard to tell in the picture what shape the base is, but if we look at this one over here, we have a square pyramid. But again, we see triangular sides with one base that's a different shape, and all of those sides meet at that apex at the top. So this one here, we have a pentagon at the bottom. We still have that point where all those triangular sides meet. So with these, how can we find the surface area? We have to remember some of the other parts. We have our slant height, which is going to be this height that runs, or our slant length, which runs right along those sides. Our vertical height is going to be perpendicular to the base. And then perimeter is the distance around the outside. So when we're looking at pyramids, perimeter is going to be the distance around the outside of that base. So our formula for surface area, then we have our vertical height here. We have our slant height or our slant length on the side there, and then we see this big capital B, the area of that base. So lateral area would just be the sides here, the surface area of just the sides. If I was building some kind of building and I didn't need to put in a floor, what would be the area that I needed? Surface area is what we're going to really be focusing on today, and that's going to be the entire surface area of the whole shape, including the sides and the base. So if you look, this part here, this 1/2 the slant height times the perimeter of the base, is part of my surface area formula, because all I'm doing is taking the area of each face of that shape and adding them all together. So I take my lateral area and then I add the area of the base. Remember, capital B is the area of the base. Now that formula there is going to change depending on what shape the base is of your pyramid. If I start with this one here, I have a square pyramid. That bottom there is an 8 by 8 square. So if I start by finding my perimeter of the base, I'm looking again around this shape here. I have 4 sides that are all 8 meters each. So 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8. So the perimeter of that base will be 32. The next piece that I want to find is the area of my base, that capital B. So area of a square is going to be side squared, which in this case is 8 squared. So the area of that base is going to be 64 meters squared. Once I have my perimeter and my base, I can go back to my surface area formula, which is 1/2 the slant height times the perimeter plus that area of the base. So surface area here, if I go back to my picture, which one of these would be my slant height? That's this one here, because it goes right on the outside of that triangle. And again, area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, which is this here is the area of all 4 of those triangles. So surface area is 1/2 times 11.7 times my perimeter, which is 32, plus the area of that base, which is 64. So as I start to put these together, surface area one half times 11.7 times 32 is 187.2 plus 64, which gives me a final surface area of 251.2, and then I take my units squared when we're looking at area or surface area. Now this one here is slightly different because what we still have a square pyramid that base is 16 feet on all sides, but they give us the actual height. And we need, for our surface area formula, remember we want 1/2 the slant height times the perimeter plus the area of the base. So in order to find that slant height, or this along the front of this triangle or this side here, we're going to have to use Pythagorean theorem. So we can draw this triangle here in the center. And right there we end up with our triangle. So once we have our triangle, this side is 3. Now this bottom here is half of that base. So instead of being 16, that's going to be a side of 8. And then our right angle would be here perpendicular to the base, which means that slant height that we're looking for is our C. So when we set up our Pythagorean theorem, we have 3 squared plus 8 squared equals C squared, or L squared, depending on how you want to set up your Pythagorean theorem. That leaves us then with a slant height of 8.5. So once I have my slant height, then I can start looking for my perimeter also, which is going to be 4 sides that are 16 feet long for each one. So my perimeter is 64. And then I need my area of the base, which is going to be 16 squared. So the area of my base is 256. So now I have all the pieces. I have my slant height, I have my perimeter, and I have my base. I can go back to plugging those things in to my surface area formula. So surface area equals 1/2 times 8.5. So that's my slant height that I found using my Pythagorean theorem, times the perimeter, which is 64, plus the area of that base, which is 256. So 1/2 times 8.5 times 64 is 272, plus 256 gives me a surface area of 528 units, which in this case is feet, and then always squared for surface area. Now next one we're going to look at here, we have a triangular pyramid, so it's going to look a little bit different because the area of our base is going to be different. We're going to have to find it in a different way. So here, what I need to look for, I'm going to start by finding my perimeter, which is that distance around that bottom triangle, which I can see is 7 on all sides. We have an equilateral triangle. So 7 plus 7 plus 7 will give me a perimeter of 21. Now the area of my base, this is not going to be side squared because it's no longer a square that we have on our base. What we have for the base is a triangle, which means the area is 1/2 times a lowercase b, so the base of the triangle, times the height of the triangle. So in this case here, I have this here I'm going to use as my base because I have a perpendicular line coming out of that triangle, which means I can use this side here as the height of my triangle. So I can go in and I have 1/2 times 7, which will be the base of the triangle, not of the pyramid. And then the height of that triangle is 6.1. So the area of the base, or the area of that triangle on the bottom, is 21.35. So now I have my perimeter, I have my base. The other thing that I need is my slant height, which if I look here, I have a slant height. I have a height that goes along the surface of one of those sides. So surface area equals 1/2 the slant height times the perimeter plus the area of the base. And I have all those pieces. I can plug them into my formula now. So surface area is 1/2 times that lateral height, or that slant height, which is 12.2, times the perimeter, which is 21, plus the area of my base, which I already found to be 21.35. So the surface area, I get 128.1 plus 21.35. So the surface area of this pyramid here is 149.45, and then centimeters squared. One more that we're going to look at before we end here. This shape here is a little bit different. Now, when it has that shaded region on the bottom here, and it tells me that this is my capital B, they've already found the area of the base for me. So if I look at my surface area formula, surface area 1/2 the slant height times the perimeter plus capital B. And all the other problems we've had to figure out what that area of the base is. This one, they give it to us. It's right there. All we have to do is plug that in. We don't have to do any math to find it. We have to find now our perimeter, and we have to find our height, or our slant height. So here we have our slant height. It's on the surface of one of those sides. And now for the perimeter, it tells me that all of these sides are the same. So if one of them is 6, they're all 6. So my perimeter, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides that are each 6 yards long. So I have a perimeter of 36. So surface area is going to be 1/2 times 11.3 times 36 plus that area of the base that they already gave me. So I get 203.4 plus 93.53, giving me a surface area of 296.93 yards squared, because we're doing surface area.